Howdy, Ags. My name's Jeremy Shaffer, and I will be presenting the 2013 West Fertilizer Company explosion for PSA 604 Emergency Management and Homeland Security. From a personal perspective on this incident, I remember exactly when it happened 2 days after the Boston Marathon bombing. I remember getting a notice on my phone about the explosion and tuning in to local police and fire scanners and hearing the chaos that ensued with that night's events, including the calls to set up triages and the call for trying to look for people, including the firefighters that were lost. So kind of means near and dear trying when we look at this presentation and this incident and identifying what went wrong and what could have been prevented in this. So without further ado, we'll get into the presentation. So um, the objectives of this presentation is to provide a history of the West Fertilizer Company. With this history, I'm going to discuss about the location, prior events that were recognized with the company, and failures and regulations and that type of thing. I'm going to detail the West Fertilizer Company explosion the night of the incident. And then through looking at the Chemical Safety Board that did the investigation, we're going to discuss their key findings. And we're going to discuss a overall arching of findings because it wasn't just the Chemical Safety Board. There's a few more in there. So we'll go over that. And then we're going to detail emergency management interventions. And we're going to detail mitigation interventions that could have been used to prevent loss of life and damage in this particular incident. Some background into the West Fertilizer Company, according to Arnold and Atkin. The company was founded in 1962, and at the time of the incident was owned by Adhere Grain Incorporated. West Fertilizer Company is located in the town of West, which is a small Texas town, population of about 2,800 people, and it's located about 75 miles south of Dallas. At the time of the explosion, the West Fertilizer Company had a total of 8 employees, including their president. So it's not a facility that's operating all the time. It's just pretty small. The company was known as a supplier for farmers and ranchers in Texas, where they provided barbed wire and tact and other things for their ranches. But on one of the things that they did, and one of the main contributors to the explosion, was the chemicals that they held that are used to produce various crops, including corn, hay, grain, wheat, and oats, which are pretty prominent in the area. According to the U.S. Chemical Safety Board's final report, the chemicals that were stored at the West Fertilizer Company included fertilizer-grade ammonium nitrate, anhydrous ammonia, diammonium phosphate, zinc sulfate, and ammonium sulfate. And going back to what I previously said, basically all these chemicals are used and widespread with farmers, not only in that particular region, but across the United States. These are pretty typical chemicals that are used. According to Henry, the company had a history of safety violations by both the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and the Environmental Protection Agency. In 2006, it was reported that a foul odor was coming from the facility by nearby residents. And from this investigation by the Environmental Protection Agency, it was found that they had a leak of ammonia, and the company was actually cited for operating without air quality permits. They failed to have a risk management plan, and they had poor training records of their employees, which, as I said before, eight 8 people at the plant, I could see how that could be a contributing factor. Furthermore, in 2011, the West Fertilizer Company reported to the Environmental Protection Agency that in its worst case scenario, the company could have a release of one of its storage tanks of anhydrous ammonia at about 10 minutes max. In that report, it had said nothing that the company had a fire risk. It also said nothing of ammonium nitrate being stored at their facility. So I say all this to establish that the West Fertilizer Company had a history of health and safety violations even before the night of the incident. This goes back years before. So just want to highlight that. According to the U.S. Chemical Safety Board, on the evening of April 17th, 2013, just 2 days after the Boston Marathon bombings, citizens reported seeing signs of smoke and fire coming from the top of the West Fertilizer Company at around 7:29 p.m. The first to arrive on scene was a police officer who was doing routine patrols in a nearby park and smelt the smoke. And once on scene, he requested that the West Volunteer Fire Department to be dispatched. Less than 20 minutes later, a mass explosion leveled the plant, sending shockwaves, debris, and fire across the small town of West, and ultimately killing 15 people, among them an EMT, 8 volunteer firefighters, and a Dallas fire captain who was visiting his sons and joined the firefighting efforts. And as you can imagine, a small town of 2,800 people, I'm sure everybody kind of knows everybody. And so highlighting, 8 volunteer firefighters is probably their entire fire department that were lost in this. So pretty sad event. Since its inception of the West Fertilizer Company, the city has been slowly building closer to the facility. Originally, the plant or facility was located in the middle of farmland with no close neighbors. And at the time of the explosion shook houses up to 50 miles away and was so powerful that the United States Geological Survey registered it as a 2.1 magnitude earthquake. It flooded homes within a 5-block radius and destroyed a nursing home and an apartment complex and nearby middle school. So it's kind of amazing that only out of 15 people being hurt, you'd imagine that there'd be more fatalities with the amount of destruction it was. So according to the Chemical Safety Board, at the time of the incident, the company had a stockpile of between 40 to 60 tons of the fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate on hand, not including what had not been offloaded in rail cars that were stored in the yard. The report also noted that only 30 tons of the fertilizer had detonated during the explosion. And according to Henry, just to put this explosion into perspective, the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City in April 19th, 1995, which killed 168 people and injured hundreds of others, only used 4,800 pounds of ammonium nitrate mixed with chemicals and diesel fuel for a total of 2.4 tons. So in relation, the West Fertilizer Company explosion just drastically was a lot more than that used in the Oklahoma City bombing. The West Fertilizer Company incident, however, is not the first incident in the United States. There's actually incidents all around the world of ammonium nitrate being exploding, but I want to highlight 2 incidents that happened here in the United States over the years. The first, most recent, was in 1994 when a factory in Port Neal, Iowa, killed 4 workers and injured 18 people. And in 1947, explosions aboard 2 ships which were holding thousands of tons of the ammonium nitrate fertilizer killed more than 500 people and injured 3,500 and devastated large areas of industrial and residential buildings in the city of Texas City. And it's actually not far from where I grew up, and I know there's a propeller from one of the ships that landed actually about a mile away from where that explosion happened. So some pretty significant events that happened in the United States. Today, all that remains of the West Fertilizer Company is just a patch of gravel and bits of rebar and concrete. However, across the tracks from where the incident happened, an internal flame memorial flickers on top of a fountain, surrounded by 15 stone blocks with the names and the stories of the 15 people that were killed in this incident. According to the Chemical Safety Board, the West Fertilizer Company explosion represents one of the deadliest chemical disasters in recent U.S. history. The Chemical Safety Board analysis of this incident found that regulatory changes that could have resulted in safety enhancements in the facility, the failure of the insurer to conduct proper safety inspections to provide an adequate level of coverage. At the time of the incident, the West Fertilizer Company was only insured up to $1 million. And as a result of this incident, a total of $230 million of damages had occurred. And a prior insurer actually dropped the West Fertilizer Company due to their failure to correct safety issues that were noted. And then there's also shortcomings in emergency response, including pre-incident planning or response training of the volunteer firefighters. And then finally, deficiencies in land use planning that permitted the city of West to encroach upon the West Fertilizer Company over the years. The overall problems, the West Fertilizer Company had a myriad of issues that could have easily presented this explosion. These issues include no automatic fire extinguishing mechanisms, no public education into what the company contains. So basically, all the chemicals that were stored there. There's no public warning system. There's no warning system at the plant saying that there's a fire. No smoke detector type deals. No regular plant exercises. So in the event of something happening, no regular inspections, and that's a failure between the EPA, OSHA, that and those sorts. But also, if they don't know about the chemicals, then there's also no need for regular inspection. So that's something that's a pretty big failure. No employee training, which, as I highlighted at the beginning of this presentation, had been an overall issue for a while. There's no mandatory reporting, no hazmat training by firefighters, no fire code, no zoning, and then also chemicals weren't stored in proper safety containers that could have maybe controlled the blast or even prevented it, depending on that. Before we go into the emergency management intervention and mitigation management, I want to talk about mitigation actions. I want to describe that as a specific action, project, activity, or process taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from hazards and their impacts. Implementing mitigation actions helps achieve the plan's missions and goals. The actions to reduce vulnerability to threats and hazards form the plan's core and a key outcome of the planning process. Implementing emergency management interventions before this event could have prevented the loss of life. These interventions include pre-incident planning, response training, and drills and exercises. Demonstrating the overall problems with mitigation intervention, I want to point out several things that could have mitigated into becoming a bigger issue in the long term. Storing combustibles near the fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate pile contributed to the progression and intensity of the fire and likely resulted in the detonation, as demonstrated in the Chemical Safety Board's final report. The installation of an automatic sprinkler system to extinguish the fire at an earlier stage of the incident. As a result of this incident, President Obama issued an executive order into further investigation into chemical storage, and what was now created because of that is the OSHA now requires that a automatic sprinkler system be stored anywhere where ammonium nitrate is stored. So that's a pretty big mitigation intervention that was a direct result of the 2013 West Fertilizer Company event. And then lastly, lessons learned from previous fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate related fires and explosions were not shared with volunteer fire departments, including the West Volunteer Fire Department. Simple sharing of this information and how to deal with it, including proper hazmat training, could have definitely mitigated the loss of life. And when you look at the total amount of people lost, eight of them were firefighters. So just a lack of sharing of knowledge could have definitely presented this. So in conclusion, the West Fertilizer Company explosion demonstrates how failures regulations cannot be necessitated. A lack of concern and sidestepping regulations resulted in 15 people losing their lives and over $230 million in damages. Effective emergency management mitigation, such as training and implementation of pre-incident planning and visits, could have resulted in responders understanding the response needed for this incident. Lastly, the implementation of mitigation interventions, such as the way that chemicals are stored and preempted sprinkler systems, could have been essential in preventing such incidents from happening. This concludes my presentation today into the 2013 West Fertilizer Company's explosion. I look forward to any questions that you may have. Thank you.